Some 16 centuries ago, spectacular murals depicting Buddhist legends known as the Jataka tales, capturing previous births of Gautam Buddha, began coming up in the more than 2000 years old Ajanta caves in Maharashtra. A set of 29 caves, Ajanta is among the finest examples of Buddhist architecture, cave paintings, and sculptures. In order to preserve the glorious Ajanta paintings and spread the word around globally, a Mumbai based data management company is deploying artificial intelligence and digital imaging technology. Digital restoration of these murals does not affect the original works. A damaged area of a mural, for instance, is restored by altering the pixels of the damaged elements through mathematical inference of the neighboring undamaged part. High-end pixel-level scanning of the documented photographs of the original work helps in the digitization process. Mayank Chhaya reports spoke to Balkrishna Choolun, chairman of the London-based UITV, and Ashwin Srivastava, CEO of the Mumbai-based Sapio Analytics. They are also directors of Ajanta Heritage and Culture, an ambitious project that is in the midst of digitizing the Ajanta murals through very high-resolution photographs as part of their campaign to spread the richness of ancient Indian art globally.
Thank you for both your time. And I think this is a tremendously exciting project to me, at least, because I think I mentioned it to Mr. Choolun that my brother, late brother Trilochan Chhaya, who was a very well-known architect, he designed as part of a deal between the Maharashtra government and the Japanese government, a sort of a replica visitor center just outside the Ajanta Ellora caves, where they've essentially recreated much of what's there inside the cave so that people can enjoy it more.
Yeah.
So I have a special affinity for this project.
Okay.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I've actually been there. And that's, yeah.
Oh, I see.
The center which is outside the Ajanta cave. Yes,
Right.
yes.
That was done by my brother who died a year ago, but that was one of his cherished projects. So I've always been fascinated. I've been to the caves, of course, like I'm sure all of you have. Let me start with, I'm sure you probably know that in terms of the use of nanotechnology, it's something that was cracked 2000 years ago in India. And this is not a nationalist nonsense that we hear these days. This is coming from very serious research from Nobel Prize winners on that, including the pigment that is used in the murals. So what's your attraction to begin with? What draws you to something like this?
Ash, do you want to say that from the technological side, and I'll go back to the other bit, okay?
Sure. I'll start, no problems. So, as you mentioned rightly, Mayank, there is so much of unknown knowledge out there that needs to be tapped, and it's important. I mean, as you mentioned rightly, it's not about the nationalism concept and all. It's the fact is that entire humanity needs it. There's a lot of plethora of knowledge which is available in different ancient art forms and different ancient even manuscripts which are out there, which needs to be decoded, which needs to be brought to the world. And honestly, what I believe that all of this, when we bring this to the world, it's effectively a step towards elevation of human consciousness. That's what we keep on saying. At the end of the day, this is all about making us know better about ourselves, what we can do better, and even in some cases help ourselves in solving some of the problems which we face today across all domains. So honestly, this is a genuine belief that it is our duty to figure out what has been happening in the ancient times and bring it to the fore to the world. That's the reason, in short, is the reason why we want to do this. And of course, there are multiple methods through which we go through this, which we can talk about later.
Sure, absolutely. Mr. Choolun, you had your end of the story.
Yes, for me, when I first was introduced to the Ajanta and the work of Mr. Benoy Belt, it was incredible. I could not believe that we have so much history, so much, if I may use the word, our Indian civilization created so many beautiful things. But our younger generation, and even our before our younger generation, we do not know much about it. And it was my duty and my duty of my friend Ashwin there. We decided that it is time now for us to let the world know about it. Because the world must know, because we know so much about the Western cultures. But for Indian cultures, it's only a few Indian people we know about it, not everybody. So it is our duty to do so and let the world see it from now on. Because I said it to you that this is the 21st century will be our century. And we cannot just talk about economics and political or other thing, but we must also bring culture, art, and heritage and our civilization to the world. So that's why we decided to come together in order to promote and to offer these beautiful art and paintings and culture and sculptures and everything else to the world. This is what we are trying to do. So that's why we decided to come together and to do it.
Ashwin, India is littered with absolutely spectacular historical legacies across the board. Why was the Ajanta the starting point for you?
See, I mean, there is something that starts to pull you in. There's one starting point always. And Ajanta has that starting point. The power of Ajanta is that it goes beyond, I mean, it's of course representation of a culture of ancient Indian times, but it speaks to human beings in a way that goes beyond, I would say, the concept of culture itself. The paintings which are there, if you keep on looking at them for hours in the right way, of course, then you will figure out much more about your own self in the process, which is what the power of Ajanta is. I think, and of course, the other aspect, which is a very important aspect, is that Ajanta caves is probably the key to culture across different countries, not just India. So many different countries, and actually various other countries outside India have actually seen the power of Ajanta even before we have completely seen how important it is. And that's what makes it so important and so special. Because if we start with Ajanta, we automatically start by talking to a large number of countries whose culture, in a way, is connected to Ajanta caves. And of course, the other spiritual aspect is that there is something special about Ajanta caves for sure.
To continue a bit on the technological side, I'm fascinated by the fact that as I was reading about your project, that in terms of digitization of the murals, your advantage is that unlike having to physically restore such old murals, digitally you have deployed an artificial intelligence technique where you are essentially extrapolating the pixels that might have been in the original. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. So, when we talk about bringing all of this to the world, it's important for us that, we do not restrict it to only a few sections of the art. Because as you know very well, when we talk about restoring Ajanta, then there are so many stories which are written. And these stories just bringing in parts will not really make sense. The entire story needs to be brought together. So it's important to restore everything. And if we try to start restoring all of that just by using human beings working on it one-on-one, it will take maybe centuries to just even do Ajanta. Forget tons of other places that we need to work on. So that's why, and that was the reason why we wanted to start this off. And secondly, technology has advanced to a level where this can be possible today. Of course, 10 years ago, you would not have said something like this, but now it is possible. So what we could see very clearly is that there has to be an understanding of course, the whole, shall I get into a little bit of technical?
Please, I would like that.
Yeah. So basically, the first step is anyways image processing, which is, the most important step in understanding the picture or whatever art form there is in the way the way we have defined the structures. For example, these are eyes, these are jewelry, these are hands. So this is the first step of it, understanding and breaking down the picture into all these elements. So that's the first step part, using image processing. There we need to do, image processing has been there for 10 years now in a big way. Of course, it's been for much longer time. But with respect to the context of such artworks, it has not been done enough. So we created our own algorithm using a common model called YOLO, Y-O-L-O, and then kind of brought changes to it, where the first step is to be able to decode the pictures into various parameters. Now, once that happens, as you mentioned, in different pixels, now once that happens, the idea, of course, is to understand what are those pixels which have been damaged. Now, that understanding is needed again through deep learning methodologies, that okay, these are the areas where there are problems which needs to be sorted out. So that's the second step. Now, the first step, second step. The third step is the most challenging step, because now you need to reconstruct it. So identification of different parts of the picture, followed by identification of those areas where reconstruction is needed, and then actually working on that based on the identification. So for example, now we see that in the eyes, maybe near the eyebrows, there is something which is missing, or maybe near the pupil something is missing. Now we already know what the category of what is missing based on the first two processes. Now the third step is then to understand that category and then utilize history, knowledge, of domain experts, because tech is nothing without the domain experts. Right. They are the ones who actually feed data, which makes the system intelligent. And that's where the whole idea comes in, that all that expertise comes in. And the way deep learning works is that you need to feed it data of actual restorations which have been done manually. So, the way it works is that you have multiple data sets. And then when these data sets come in, then that's how it keeps on improving. It needs to be combined with knowledge on a specific parameter level. And that parameter, when I say, is also connected to the timeline. Maybe is the painting from 800 years ago versus it is from 2000 years ago. They're all different timelines. The kind of painting which needs to be done, so many aspects are there. So all of that is fed to the system, which then restores, or I would say reconstructs the elements over there. So yeah, so this is the process.
Yeah. Mr. Choolun, what was your introduction? I mean, you have always been fascinated with Indian culture generally, but what was your specific entry point to the Ajanta murals?
Yes, we had to have a certain place to start, because we know Ajanta is mainly of the Buddhist paintings and a message. And like my friend Ashwin just said, each painting has a message, has a story to tell. And we believe that by restoring it and telling that story, that's the beginning. For us, that's the beginning. We have to start somewhere. And then after that, we're going to go to, for example, to Hinduism, to Jainism, and then even to Sikhism we're going to go. Because we believe that what India has offered, has given to the world, the four of the biggest, if I may say so, a very, very original faith to the world. And Buddhism is where we decided that we should start there, because the painting there are so fascinating. And each painting there has a message. That message it's only what Ashwin was saying just now, that when you look at it, you can interpret it the way you want to interpret. There's one for me that touches me a lot in it, is where Lord Buddha was there with his wife, and they were trying to convince him not to go, to stay in the palace, and I don't want you to go. But he decided to go because he wanted to go and find enlightenment and nirvana. For me, that is the touching point. For me, that is a blessing for us to start somewhere. Right. And for me, that is the picture that made me think that there are many, many other pictures in Hinduism. Everything has a message. For me, I look at the message more than anything else. Okay. So that was, for me, that was why I decided to participate with Ashwin, and let's do it, not only for ourselves, but for the entire Asia continent. Because we believe that each country in Asia has Indian cultures. And if you go to Indonesia, probably you will find that the opera is all Ramayana, all Bhagavad Gita, and everything else is nothing to do, although it's an Islamic country, but they tend to culture. Their culture is part of that. So we are trying to do that. So for us, Ajanta was the starting point. And from there, and then from there, are we going to move to different sectors of Hinduism, Jainism, and of course, Sikhism.
Right.
Okay. So,
Yeah. Ashwin, in terms of the number of murals that you have already digitized after the high resolution pictures were taken, are you able to share with me what that number might be, and you think you've covered all of it, or there is still more to go?
No, the work is going on right now. I would say the digitization process has been for about 15 to 20,000 square inches of the murals. Yeah, and then as you know, there are millions of square inches in Ajanta, so the work is going on right now.
I see. And in case you don't mind sharing with me the kind of cameras that are being used, of course, I'll talk to the photographer later. But if you have anything that you can share, because I'm almost an obsessive visitor from the very start of Google Arts and Culture. I tell myself that perhaps I'm the only one who visits that site on a daily basis, 4 times a day, because I'm absolutely astounded by the level of work they have put in terms of creating very high resolution pictures of great impact. They have done some in India, but nothing compared to what you're trying to do. So in a sense, you will rival them at some point. So,
yes.
So tell me about the cameras that you use.
So it has also cameras it's all Mr. Benoy Behl's work which we are using for Ajanta caves. Okay. So as you know, and he will be the person to explain that in more detail. But low light photography, as you know very well, is very important over there. They have they are caves at the end of the day, and the natural light does not come in, and you don't even want to use flash because that will damage the paintings. So low light photography needs to be done, and I am in the details of the camera and everything. Mr. Maybe he can tell better.
Okay. Mr. Choolun, you are, in a sense, the international dimension to this project.
yes.
Tell me at some length what you are doing to push it, not just within Asia, but worldwide.
Yes. We first of all, let me explain something to you. I already got a website which has been going on for 12 years. And that's why my association with Mr. Basu. Okay, right. Darren. That's why we became friends. And this is to do for people of Indian origin. Okay, around the world, but in countries like from Fiji to Mauritius to Trinidad, Guyana, everywhere, and of course in United Kingdom, and of course now in United States, everywhere. So I am always a great believer that we have to let the knowledge, also the people of those countries, they would like very much to know about our Indian culture. And my job is that I'm appointing a number, I call them ambassadors. They are very prominent politicians, not ex-politicians, judges, people like that. They are very, very keen to know a bit more about what we are doing. So my job is to spread it around the world through that. And at the same time, we are also communicating. I have got, let me give you an example. In Guyana, in South America, I have already got about 3 people there that are going to become, I call them, this is my way of saying, they are our ambassadors for our culture and everything like that. Same thing we are doing in Suriname, in Trinidad. And you will be surprised to know in Jamaica, there are nearly 75,000 people of Indian origin living there.
Yeah.
So what we are doing, we are going around the world, we are looking at it. So we will be doing a global launch, I would say to you, in the next 2 weeks around the world. Okay. Yeah, this is what we are planning to do. So I have already appointed a number of ambassadors all around the country. I'm finishing now with Fiji, because Fiji also got a huge Indian population. But as you know, and Dubai, you know very well, is a big place. United Kingdom, and you know Silicon Valley because Mr. Basu told me, Vedan, you don't worry about the Silicon Valley. I got quite a lot of people there. So what we are doing at the moment, in a marketing point of view, we are connecting with our people who will be on the ground. And they will talk to the ministers of culture of those countries. Because let's say, for example, in Mauritius, the Minister of Culture will know about it. And because we have a huge amount of cultural centers in Mauritius, from Rajiv Gandhi Cultural Center, Indira Gandhi Cultural Center, the Mauritius Institute, which is part of the Indian cultures, thing like that. So my job is to make these people aware of what we are doing and to connect them and let them share their views as an aspiration with us, and we will do the same thing to them. So what we are doing, we are uniting the Indian people globally and connecting them with Mother India. That is my job. That's what I want to do.
I'm presuming there is considerable cost involved in a project like that. How do you manage the funding part? Is it all your own doing, or you are seeking from, say, United Nations have programs that might support something, a project like that? Tell me a bit about that, if you don't mind.
Okay. Shall I say it first, Ashwin? Yeah, first. Okay. We have spent our own money to start with. A seed money that we have created to create everything. We have done that. Between me and Ashwin company, we have done that. Okay. We have not invited anybody to come and put their money, because we believe that the paintings that we will be having on our site, and they can be offered also as to a lot of our friends who would like to buy a painting from us, or they want to own that painting. So that is where we will start campaigning on that basis. Okay. And then at the same time, as a site, we also like to put other products, setting not product relevant to the culture side, not relevant to something else. So we intend to do that. But in the meantime, we believe we can finance it ourselves for the time being. For the next 6 months, we will be able to do that. There's no problem on that. But in the future, you will find some people might come to us and say, look, we like to participate with you. We like to do that. Then we will decide. Okay. But at the moment, we are okay.
Ashwin, so before you answer, I wanted to quickly introduce this part. I'm sure you're very aware of the non-fungible assets, that NFTs that have become a big deal now.
Yeah.
Now, what you have could be massive NFT if it is marketed well. Are you looking at something like that?
Exactly. Yeah, NFT is part of the plan for sure. Yeah. It has to be. We are looking at that, and I mean, honestly, we are creating. See, I tell you something. When we started this off, and when we started putting in money to do this, we did not know how and where that money will come back to us in form of any return, right? Because the idea is that we are crazy entrepreneurs. We believe in something, we do it. On one side, there was a genuine belief in the power of whatever we are working on, the culture and everything. The power in itself is huge. And the other side, there was excitement of tech, which is what drives us, right? I mean, what is more exciting than to create something so innovative, which, as you mentioned, Google is creating, right? It's exciting. So for us, these two things are so big that, okay, let's go into it, whatever it takes. Let's pump in the money. Let's start creating it. And then, if you do something great, I personally have this belief always. You just do great things. Things will somehow come back to you. You don't need to worry about that. I've never in my life built so many companies, worried about what will happen later. I have always jumped into it right away, and then things come back to me in some way or the other. Right? That's the belief which we function with. So yes, so now there are so many plans on how we can further utilize this as well. Now, one point being, with NFTs, the true value can finally come out. Now, we all know how a Da Vinci painting or something by Michelangelo, and everything is so high value. Why is it not the same for, the Indian artworks, which have people who are, unknown artists. So that will be the future. We are going towards that. We are working towards that. We are not just, of course, bringing it to the world. In the process of bringing it to the world, we are enhancing what we call it, if you want to call it, the tangible value of that as
well. Right. In terms of the artificial intelligence that you're deploying, is it your own proprietary thing? How have you developed that?
It's our own proprietary work. We have actually, there's an entire story behind, of course, we formed an entire team to do this. But then we realized that, okay, we are we can form some good teams, but we need to have the best of brains. So we actually ran a hackathon across India to find the biggest the deep learning brains in the country. And it was an amazing hit because Ministry of Culture supported us of India, Government of India. And then there was a university called Rishi Hood University, which is very active in India. They supported us. And then, of course, lots of IITs, they came together. I'm from IIT Bombay, got the entire community activated. So we actually got the best of the brains when it comes to artificial intelligence, particularly deep learning. And that's how.
Both of you are sitting on perhaps the world's richest resource in terms of cultural heritage. If you start with this and end up covering the whole gamut of things, you would have done such an extraordinary service to humanity, because people don't realize the extent of riches that Indian art has. I do it as an obsessive interest in it. It is astonishing what has been produced across the board.
Yes.
So I'm so glad you're doing it. Mr. Choolun, in terms of you are in Europe, essentially.
Yes.
And Europe has sensibilities towards great art. America has too, but Europe, especially because it has centuries of tradition of great art.
Yes.
Are you, by any chance, involving any European museums or others in this project?
Yes. We are going to start first, if I may say, with the Indian Cultural Center in London to start. And we will be inviting Mr. Benoy here, or Mr. Benoy can do it through Zoom, talking to the people. We'll be inviting a number of people. We might even invite Mr. Boris Johnson on that particular for exhibition that we would like to do. Because the exhibition will be done in London, and then we invite the art dealers to come on that day, and we leave it to them. Let the market take its course, So that's number one. But we intend to do that around the world, by the way. Of course, in Mumbai, in New Delhi, everywhere we're going to do that. So the same exhibition will be everywhere, and we will pick the beautiful artwork done by different contemporary arts also, but all one also. It's not going to be just one subjects only. It will be everything, because we believe that this is something we have a duty to offer to the world, not only to just our Indian people, but the whole of Asia is looking forward to something like that.
Right. Ashwin, in terms of... please go ahead. No, go ahead.
So adding on to what Mr. Vedan said right now, so there's this entire set of global exhibitions planned. We are with ICCR, I'm sure you would be aware, it's part of the Government of India here. And we have actually, had this informal tie-up as well, where we'll be conducting global exhibitions at different centers of ICCR. Nehru Center, which Mr. Veda mentioned, is also a center of ICCR in the UK, in London. So that has already been confirmed, and we are doing it across the world. So that's the step one. And then there are a number of museums which have been planned also. And as you mentioned rightly, European museums are part of the plan. Even US Smithsonian is something which we are very actively looking at. So there's a plan.
Where I'm sitting in Chicago has a great cultural center called the Art Institute of Chicago. It has some of the greatest paintings. Maybe you should hit them too. They have a pretty strong South Asian department. So I'm just suggesting that you might consider reaching out to them. To Chicago has a great tradition of art. So in terms of merchandising, Ashwin, because since you will end up finishing a lot of these paintings as almost full products, they lend themselves so well to merchandising in terms of fabric, for instance, printing them on silk or raw silk or cotton or whatever. I mean, you will have a great deal of interest in the Western markets if you have, say, a shirt or a tie made of some artwork from Ajanta. It would do very well. I think maybe you should. I'm sure you've thought about it.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something which you said rightly. We need to consider, and we need to start working on that. And we have that as major part of the plan. It serves two purposes. On one side, it of course, it allows us to reach out to more number of people, and it creates a new brand in itself. If you look at it that way, so that's the right word to use. Because I mean, that's a very wrong comparison. But you know how a DC or a Marvel They create
Absolutely.
entire gamut, entire universe.
Yes.
Such a universe needs to be created by us also,
No,
isn't it?
you're right, because no one markets like the Americans.
Yeah.
Americans can market the heck out of anything. So
Yes.
I think I'm glad you're setting up as DC and Marvel because they're brilliant at that.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah.